This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's Cass, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one.
60-minute rant, and we'll see where it ends.
What do you mean you might go on a 60-minute rant?
Hey, I haven't gone.
Isn't that what this fucking show is you going on a 60-minute rant?
That's that would be even long by my standards. I will tell you this, though, that when you get the hot sauce that says butt pucker, they ain't fucking lying.
Oh, I believe that.
Dude, Katie got me this shit down in Cave Creek a couple of years ago, and it's been in our pantry forever. I got some of it out today and sprinkled a little bit on my salad. I couldn't finish the damn thing.
Really?
I was sweating. Katie said, it looks like you just went on a run. Like you were fucking pouring with sweat. My face was red. I had to go eat ice cream.
That's
afterwards.
Hilarious.
Like it was, holy crap, man. So, the Cave Creek, Arizona, get the butt pucker stuff if you like hot stuff. Cause man, it looks like picante sauce. And I'm thinking, well, picante sauce isn't.
Yeah.
It's not that hot.
Like salsa, right?
Yeah, it's flavorful. And even the hot version of picante is not that bad. And that's what it looks like. But good God, that stuff was like, it was fucking lava, man. It was good. So funny. How's this for a no topic show? We could go down conspiracy rabbit holes that I've been thinking about. That's on the forefront of my brain. Or we can talk about things you shouldn't share with your kids.
Yeah, well, why don't we just do both?
Oh, okay.
Like, because you probably don't want to share the conspiracies with your kids either.
So I shouldn't share with. That's hard to say. I shouldn't share with my kids that I think that BlackRock is trying to take over the world and Larry Fink is the devil. I shouldn't share that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have grown kids, so I guess you can now, but I don't know that I'd share that with little kids.
They probably think my dad knows the devil. That's pretty cool, man.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, take that motherfucker to show and tell.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not up on conspiracy theories, so you might be going on a rant for 60 minutes if we go down that road. I don't think
that's even a conspiracy theory, and I'll just keep it real for a second, but I don't really think that that's too much of a conspiracy theory. Because the more I read about Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock right now, the more I read about him, I think that he has had his fingers in a lot of. I think he's had his fingers in a lot of the pendulum swings of our economy, and I think he's profited off of it for a long, long time. And I mean, when you're the manager of a company that manages something like, what is it, $3 trillion in assets?
Yeah, they got a ton of money. And they got a ton of funds.
And they got a ton of influence. And you're on the CEO or you're the co-CEO of the World Economic Forum. Like, it's hard for me to get my mind around the idea that is not somehow nefarious.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
there's not that many benevolent billionaires out there.
No, there's not. And obviously anytime you're in a position like that, you by default, you get a lot of influence. There's no question about that because you got a lot of triggers to pull. So,
well, and your pockets are deep, you know, and I mean, everything from local policies that can benefit a town all the way up to federal policies and influencing elections by, who you invest in and things like that. I mean, it can go deep, man.
Yeah.
It can go deep depending on what narrative you want sold.
Yeah. Well, to add fuel to your conspiracy brain, there has been literature written, especially through the effects of globalization, that eventually things could shift into these multinational dominant corporations or organizations that actually function like uh, states, have specific sovereignty over certain things and control a lot and can do a lot and have influence that spans a lot, and could actually at one point replace, to a certain extent, nation states. And when you talk about global economics, you know, there's a lot that you can do as a country sometimes to manage that stuff, but because of globalization, there's so much more that these guys can do that crosses so many other national lines, right? And that influence that a country may have in one avenue or another to kind of pull them back at times doesn't necessarily always exist. There's not a clean cut way to do it. You know what I mean? So they have a lot of influence and a lot of power.
Well, speaking about Larry Fink specifically, not too long ago, he was quoted as saying almost exactly what you just said about the globalization, and he thinks that the world economy has started to fracture a little bit, and COVID was a big player in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it was one of, if not the biggest transfers of wealth in modern history, where you had the poor kind of got poorer and the rich kind of got richer. And it's, the mom and pop hardware store down the street got shut down, but Home Depot didn't. And, we can certainly argue about a lot of that shit all day long. But the fact is, a lot of the small businesses had to go under. They just couldn't afford it. Right. And the big conglomerates, they sort of stuck it out, and now they're reaping the benefits of it.
Yeah. Well, when you have deep pockets, you can weather those storms.
Exactly. And then, you got a company like BlackRock their portfolio is spread such that any one event is probably, they can absorb that.
They're insulated.
Right? Yeah. And then you pile on top of that the influence they have through NGOs and even direct influence, which is, one of the things that really intrigued me when USAID got shut down, and people read that. Often I've heard this more than once, where people say, well, it's US aid, it's supposed to be aiding other people. That's not what that stands for. I had to Google it to get you the exact verbiage, but it's not like foreign aid. That's not what it's for. It's designed as influence.
Yeah, it's a soft power tool.
Yeah. And I heard this one guy talking about it on a podcast, and he goes, yeah, USAID, they basically did all the shitty, dirty work that the CIA couldn't do through Title IX and Title X and all this other stuff that they're beholden to. USAID, they're an NGO. They're not beholden to any of that shit. And so they would go out and do all the nasty, dirty work. And I was talking to a guy today about sort of this idea of you go to a roulette table and you bet on black and red at the same time. And maybe this round you bet on black a little bit more than red, and the next round you bet on red just a little bit more than black. And that's kind of the way that a lot of these places like BlackRock's and some of these other NGOs, that's kind of how they play games, right? It's like, I'm gonna funnel a little bit of money to this side and funnel a little bit of money to that side, and I'm gonna see which one pays off more. That's really what it comes down to. So anyways, it's fun. Keeps me entertained. YouTube is a fucking Jesus, man. Pandora's box.
It is.
Hey, dude, here's a list of shit you shouldn't share with your kids. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit. And Dr. Phil had this really good quote. Katie used to watch Dr. Phil all the time. And I kind of learned some through osmosis. But he had this one cool quote when he was talking to some parents about their unruly child or whatever. And he says, look, you don't burden children with adult problems. And I really like that, man. And I think this list is going to illuminate some of that. And like the first one, in no particular order, but details of adult relationship problems. Like if mom and dad are having relationship issues, that's probably not something you want to pull your kids in and talk about maybe right now. I will say that eventually, if it gets bad enough, you probably have to have that conversation, right?
Yeah, at some point you do, right?
Like, okay, so I'm gonna ask you straight up, because I've never been through a divorce. I don't know what that looks like. At what point do you pull your kids aside and say, hey, mom and dad are having issues and it's kind of not resolvable?
Well, first of all, I mean, kids are, I think, more perceptive than we give them credit for.
100% agree.
So they already know, something's probably going on if things are bad. We didn't specifically like have a sit down conversation to talk to our kids until we had made the decision that we were going to get divorced. Um, so, and I think that's different. Those dynamics are going to be different for everybody. Um, but I agree with the baseline statement there, which is just, yeah, man. I mean, um, I think it's so hard. Just if you go back to your Dr. Phil comment, I mean, think about how many single parent households we have. And you may have somebody as a parent who is working two jobs to make ends meet. Um, you know, based on circumstances, whatever. Um, I think it's hard for kids in those scenarios not to feel the adult problems in the room, right? Um, when parents are doing the best that they can. But yeah, I mean, if you're in a situation where you can shield them from those types of things, then obviously that's the right thing to do, because one, they can't, they don't have that perspective that we do. They won't see problems the same way that we see problems, and they're probably going to play more off of your emotional reaction and
Yeah.
aspect to it as a
Yeah.
parent
Yeah.
than anything else. You know what I mean? And the idea is to not make them worry,
Yeah.
because so many things can happen. Like, if I could encourage anybody in the role of a parent, like, if you can do anything for your kids when they're younger, is yeah, let them have that kid experience, right? Let them
Yes.
have that experience where they're not burdened by all the shit that's going on in the world. Maybe some of the pressures that you're feeling as a family or as a parent, financially, relationally,
Yeah.
so that they don't lose that sense of wonder, right? Because I feel like when kids lose that sense of wonder early on in life, it really affects in some ways their creative capabilities down the road.
Yeah.
Their desire to explore. Um, yeah, you don't want them to grow up too fast, in my experience, because if they have to, and then they're faced with some of those harsher realities of the world too soon, like, it can really shape them in some healthy ways.
Yeah.
It can develop really good discipline, maybe a really good work ethic, um, or a love for certain things, like sports and stuff like that. But it can also turn into some really bad things too, right? Where
Yeah.
they feel ostracized or alone, or they start to hold up and they don't want to share their feelings or let people know what's going on, because there's shame. If they, especially if they don't understand it, there might be shame around what's happening for them, and they don't want to share it with other people because they don't want
Hmm.
to be judged for what's happening, because they feel like they're different somehow, even though the same shit's probably going on in most of the other kids' houses too. But they don't know that. They don't have the perspective to
Yeah.
understand that. So yeah, I would agree with that.
I saw this cartoon drawing one time, or maybe it was a short story. I don't remember, but it was a little kid goes up to his dad and he's trying to get his dad to, like, I don't know, go throw a ball with him or something, spend some time with him. And dad's like, "Oh, I'm busy. I'm working. I'm busy. I'm working. I'm busy. I'm working." And so the kid finally he asked the dad. He goes, "Dad, how much do you make per hour?" And the dad goes, "I make, I don't know, $50 an hour." Kid's like, "Okay, cool." And so kid goes and gets a paper route, saves up $50, and comes into dad and gives him a shoebox full of money. And dad goes, "What the fuck is this?" He goes, "Dad, I'd like to buy an hour of your time." And I know that's not totally related to what we were talking about, but that popped in my head as you were talking about that. Kids want to be kids. They also want to be, I think they want to be close to their parents. They want to spend the time with them, and not talking about adult shit, like how many times when your kids were little, just get in the floor and play fucking Hot Wheels, man.
Yeah, all it
Come
takes.
here, I'll play GI Joes with you. Fuck
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Let's build something with Legos. Hell yeah,
Yeah.
man. Let's have a good time, and
Absolutely.
still one of our things in our family, and Katie's going to get mad at me when I say this, because I reluctantly join every time and then I end up having a good time. But we do game night all the time here at the house. We get any chance we get to have all the kids here at the house for dinner. And we really do it a lot around Christmas, around the holidays, because the kids will come out here and stay for 3 or 4 days, and we'll do game night. And I mean, maybe some days it's a game up on the big screen, or we play categories, or God, what's that one that's got all the filthy fucking answers? I can't remember now. It comes in a freaking black box.
No idea.
It'll Cards Against Humanity.
Oh yeah,
That's always, as the
yeah.
kids get
We
older,
play
that one's a
that.
lot more fun.
Exploding kittens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do have a quick story about like what you were talking about. And I think I remember you telling me one time that that's why you're a Disney adult.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's something that I've carried with me for a while.
Well, and just for clarification for the listeners, if they haven't heard us talk about this in the past, like I lost wonder when I was younger as a child through things that went on in my own family and my mom and dad's divorce and separation and all that stuff. And so that's why I like Disneyland, because it's like one of the few places in the world where I experienced that wonder like
Yeah.
a child again.
Or you can
So
be a kid. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. You know? Yeah. And I think in a lot of the ways that I'm like that, I'm not a Disney guy, but I like swinging on monkey bars. I like doing fun shit. Um, but that goes back to my childhood, and I'm not poo pooing on my childhood. I actually had a lot of fun in my childhood. My mom sent me this picture the other day of this kid that was like covered in mud, hosing himself off with a water hose out back of their house. My mom used to let me and my stepbrother go out and have mud days. When it would rain a lot, she'd be, put on your shitty clothes. I don't want to see you until dark.
yeah,
And dude, it was, I mean, we'd come in, we'd look like little black kids, covered head to toe in the darkest, nastiest mud. And she'd just sit there with the water hose. Shh, go to the shower. You're done. Throw our clothes away, you know? But here's an example. So I joined the Air Force in 1997. I went to the recruiter in November and I went to basic training in January. Like it happened fast for me
yeah,
to enlist. And so I go to basic training and it's like third or fourth week of BMT, and I have not talked to my parents yet. And I keep calling, you know, they give us our 1 or 2 phone calls a week or whatever. And I kept calling and never got an answer. And like it would say the phone's been disconnected or this number is no longer in service. Like, motherfucker, I know my phone number. I haven't lost that part of my brain. Right.
yeah.
And so finally I call my grandmother and I'm like, where the fuck are my mom and dad? And she goes, oh, well, they sold the house and they moved. What? So they come out to basic training graduation, and this I ended up finding this out years later. They come out to basic training. They spent like their last dime to put gas in the car to come down there to San Antonio to spend the weekend with me. Had I known any of this, I wouldn't have got 2 scoops of ice cream. But it turns out that in between that November and January, they lost everything. They lost everything. They had to sell their farm. They had to sell their house. They moved into a little apartment. Like it was bad. And I had
Wow.
no idea.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was a child. Could you imagine being a 10-year-old and having to go through that?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah, you want a stable environment as much as possible, right? And now, but what I would say is, you know, if we have listeners out there that have grown children, I would definitely share those things. Not the situation that
Maybe
you
not
were
the
in
nuance.
per se,
Yeah.
but like I would like, you know, I have no problem talking to my kids now about the relationship that I had with their mom, you know, and why things went sideways and the part that I played in it. And because those are good lessons learned, right? Those are things to look out for. You know, there's mistakes that I made because of how I was raised and, you know, some of the things that I believed or was taught, some of the messaging that I had when I was younger that didn't really serve me in finding probably the right person for me when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sharing those things with my kids is valuable so that they don't repeat mistakes that I made in life, right? Um, you know, and it's not done with spite or to be mean or, you know, or to be manipulative or anything like that. It's just to share information, right? And that's been a great opportunity for me too. I mean, like with David, my oldest son, we talk all the time about stuff, you know, and he'll send me text messages or he'll call me and we talk about relationship stuff sometimes too, maybe something that he's struggling with or just questions in general that he has. And I think a lot of that is just because that door was opened up to him because he and I have talked about so much in the past as he's gotten older.
Yeah.
So,
so there's a couple more here on the list that I think tie to this nicely as this is kind of developing here, but there's one on the list here that says negative opinions about the other parent. I mean, I it's hard for me to it's hard for me to put myself in this, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot by any means.
No, I'm happy to talk about it.
But it's hard for me. I mean, sometimes Katie has aggravated me to the point where I've sighed in frustration and walked out of the room, and obviously the kids know what's going on, but I don't like drive down the street going, "Your fucking mother,"
Yeah,
that kind of
exactly.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you don't want to fight in front of your kids. You don't want to have those kind of, if you want to have a conversation, go to another room, wait till the kids go to bed, whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to disparage. It's so manipulative to disparage your spouse or somebody that you may be in a relationship with in front of the kids.
Yeah.
Because basically in a scenario like that, all you're doing is manipulating them. You're shaping their view of what the other person is.
You're trying to get them on your side. You're trying to recruit them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's no space for that, man. And kids should never be put in that position,
Yeah.
And it's hard because when you go through a divorce, you're angry, and everybody always wants to point a finger and place blame and make it as black and white as possible. But, I'll tell you, I've seen people who have handled that very well, who haven't said a disparaging thing. And there's a lot of things that they could say about the person that they got divorced from with their kids and try to continue to promote their kids to have a relationship with the other person. And then as they get older, they're going to recognize certain things on their own. But yeah, there's no reason to throw anybody under the bus because it doesn't serve a purpose, except to damage the potential for that child to have a relationship with the other parent.
Yeah, and I've seen that play out. Damn it, I hit the mute button again. I don't know how I do that. I've seen that play out in other people's relationships where there's a lot of name calling, there's a lot of finger pointing, there's a lot of your fucking mother and that kind of stuff. And I think really all that is, it's you're not raising yourself up. You're trying to cut the other person down.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not the same thing. Right. And I know I know people who have done it a different way and say, you know what, I'm going to be the bigger person here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to rise up over this, and whatever the other spouse does, male or female, doesn't matter. That's on them. I can't control any of that. And it's frustrating, I know, because I've had these conversations with those people, and they're like, man, I keep trying to be a good dude. I keep trying to be respectful. I keep trying to just, because at the end of the day, we still have to co-parent. Like, we're going to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
Whether we live together or not, we have to have some kind of functional relationship, and it's interesting, the people who handle it well versus the people who don't, and how much happier one side is than the other.
Well, and it's not necessarily easy to do either, right? But I mean, I think the question to ask yourself is, what kind of behavior do you want to model to your children? Do you want to model to your kids that, you're going when you get angry, it's okay to just start yelling and screaming and cutting somebody down and calling them all kinds of names and manipulating people to your side because we live in a black and white world and somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong.
Yeah.
Or that relationships aren't important, or like, what do you want to model to your kids? Right. And so, like, in my example, like, I didn't have conversations with my kids around what happened, how things went down, or anything like that until they were old enough. I figured that when they were old enough to have that conversation, they would probably come and ask me. And so I just waited until they asked me, and then if at that time I was like, yeah, I think they're old enough and mature enough to have this conversation, then I would have that conversation with them. But it was never meant to manipulate. I mean, even David was the oldest of our kids when we got divorced, and he actually kind of knew what had happened through a couple of situations that had gone down. And so he was really upset with his mom, when we first moved to California. And, and in that situation, I just continued to encourage him to, reach out to her, find a way to establish a relationship, and just keep working at it, because at the end of the day, even if I don't like her that much, it's still his mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's still his mother.
that's tough.
So,
Yeah.
and he has to figure out as he gets older, what type of relationship. Now we had to have conversations about, hey, have some appropriate expectation management around,
What to
how
expect
things are
from
going
that
to,
person. Yeah.
and how things are going to
Yeah.
be received if you do X, Y, or Z, and some of the
Yeah.
things that go on in those types of relationships. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah, no, that's good. And going back to what you were saying about, name calling and they're picking up on that kind of stuff. If this is the behavior that you model in front of your kids, like standing in the driveway, yelling across the car at each other, and little Johnny's in the back seat. Well, when little Johnny goes to second grade, what do you think he's going to do on the playground when he doesn't get
yeah,
his way? You know,
yeah.
um,
Or what do you think he's
and
going to do when he starts having his own relationships as a teenager and stuff like
yeah,
that, right?
exactly.
Like, so
And Katie and I both are. We're not like bottle rocket type people. Like we don't just explode. We kind of slow simmer, and then eventually that pimple pops.
yeah,
But I will say this, um, gosh, dude, I can probably count on one hand how many really deep arguments we've had over 25 years, because most of it's small potatoes,
yeah,
it's little stuff.
sure,
And before it gets to that point, we just kind of go to our separate corners for a few
yeah.
minutes and then we come back. Right.
That's
So
always a good thing to do.
that pimple never gets volcanic.
Yeah,
Um, and so, and I'm not going to like, far be it from me to give anybody like parenting advice. Checks in the mail if my kids turn out normal or not, but who knows, man. Um, but, you know, I think you're right, man. I think that I remember there was a specific turning point for me personally when I realized that my kids weren't listening to me do this to them anymore, like getting onto them and giving them the shaky finger treatment. And I really had to shift my strategy to leading by example, because as they grew up into young men, they hit that 14, 15-year-old mark or so. I'm having less and less influence on them. And it's just natural. It's normal, right? And because they spend more time at school than they do at home, and they spend more time with their friends than they do with
well, and
me.
they
And
also start to explore their own independence, and
yeah, and they're starting to
start trying to
push
figure
their
out their own
boundaries and
values and all that
question
stuff. Yeah,
authority. And
yeah,
I get it, man. So the best thing that I found to do, again, checks in the mail if it worked or not, but I kind of reshaped who I am and started leading more by example. Like I don't have to come out and tell you to do this, or this, because I want you to see me doing this, or this. And hopefully one day you'll go, you know what? My dad did that, so why don't I try it? And that
yeah.
was kind of my thought process on it.
No, and I think that's huge, brother, because like, right, teach your boys what it's like to be in a good, solid, loving relationship, and how to treat a woman and how to love a woman. And moms do the same, right? Like, show your boys or your daughters what it is to be in a loving
Yeah,
relationship and how to treat your partner with respect and dignity. And you know what? We're all only human. If you're in a situation where maybe, you and your partner have blown up in front of the kids before or something like that, I would encourage you to, if something like that happens, once everybody's settled down and everything's cool, bring everybody together and just have a conversation about it, and just reassure the kids and let them know, hey, sometimes we get emotional,
yeah.
sometimes we get upset with each other, but it
Let
doesn't
me
mean
tell you
we
how
don't
we
love.
make up, though.
Yeah, yeah, right. It doesn't mean we don't love each other, and just give them that reassurance that everything's okay. Because I think the other mistake that people can make sometimes, especially with younger kids, is something like that happens and then they just kind of ignore it. Like, oh, well, if we just ignore it, it'll go away. But I guarantee you they see it. And then that poor little kid has question marks and they start to wonder if everything's all right and what's going on. And they may not even have the ability to really understand it enough to ask the right questions to make sense of it. So having those follow-up conversations, I think, are important as well.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good.
Yeah, just model the behavior you want to see in your children. And you are an example. They're watching, man. So
Yeah, and here's I think I put this quote in Work Hard, Don't Suck somewhere, but I'm paraphrasing, but it says something to the effect of, if your kids were to grow up to be like you, would you would you be embarrassed by that, or would you be okay
Yeah.
with that? And I think that's a
Yeah.
pretty good litmus test, man.
I do too.
And I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, if my kids grew up to be like me, is this okay? Right. And I
Yeah.
think right now, I think the answer is yeah. I mean, obviously there's work to do, but by and large, I think we're doing okay. And hopefully some of that rubbed off on them, and yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Right
We'll
on.
see. Another one that was down here, and I'm interested to get your point of view on this. Let me tell a real quick story, and then we'll talk about political rants in front of your kids. So Caleb was in maybe like 5th or 6th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and he came home, and he like walked in from school. And Katie's gonna get mad at me because I'm getting the details of this story incorrect, but the big picture is he walks in and he sees on the news, he saw Obama on the news, and he just walks in and he goes, "We don't like him," and he kept going, right? And Katie's like, whoa, come back, get and I guess he had picked up on Katie and I talking some shit about President Obama, and Katie I think handled it really well. She sat him down and she says, "Look, we may not agree with the things that he does or says sometimes, but he's still the president, and we don't necessarily have to respect the man, but we can still respect the position." And you and I have a unique perspective on this, I think, because of the military and chain of command and all that stuff.
Sure.
But and Katie, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Katie was in the military her entire life. Her dad was a career military. She married into the military. One of her kids is going into the military.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a pretty good lesson, and as I'm looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, okay, we can sit here and we can debate issues and we can talk about it, but going on these extremist rants or something like that might be something you hold back and reserve.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, right? We talk about this on the podcast all the time. Like, what's the messaging that you get as a kid, right? And we all get messaging from our parents. And what I would encourage people to do is, rather than have like some big political rant blowout, we're Republicans for life, we're Democrats for life, whatever it is, right? Talk to your kids about values. Like, what are the values that drive how you align yourself politically, and share that with them, and share why. But don't, like, one of the things that I never try to do with my children is push my value system on them. So I would talk about, hey, this is the lens that I view the world through. This is the value system I have and why. This is why things are important. This is why these things are important to me. This is kind of how I align myself, and it's because of these values that I have. But I also encouraged them as they got older to kind of define that for themselves, because you have to, right, man? You don't want to be, otherwise you can get pigeonholed really fast. And those things change over time, as we grow and mature, as we have different life experiences, or, somebody who, I mean, when I worked in politics, I saw people change their political views because of things that happened to their family in healthcare or education or with the legal system or whatever, right? Both left and right. Like, people that maybe were, more left leaning, that all of a sudden become really conservative on a specific issue because of some impact that, a legal decision had on their family's farm or something like that, right? So, like, those things can shift and change. And I think those are good conversations to have with your kids. But yeah, I agree. Like, political rants and just firing off and, all that stuff, I think it's probably too much for little kids.
Yeah, and I think there's the specific bullet here says political rants or extremist views, and I have to think that it's sort of leaning towards the more extremist type thing.
Yeah.
Versus just sitting down and having a conversation about, like, when the kids were little, we would bring them in and we would talk about who's running for president. Let's talk about it, and let's talk about why. And we have a 2-party system in this country, like it or not. That's what we got. And here's the 2 candidates that they put up, and kind of explain that to them. And all of this, I think, in context is all the trick is to make it age appropriate, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to sit down.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah, it's very difficult to sit down with a 5th grader and explain abortion and all the nuance that goes on with that issue.
Sure.
Right. You can explain Planned Parenthood and kind of where it came from and all that. But at the end of the day, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, some of that's really difficult. Maybe stick to something different. And, you know, even something as, I don't know, gun control, you know, like it's very difficult to communicate the nuance of some of these issues.
Right. Yeah. Especially for kids.
To somebody who just,
their brain's
like, they
not
don't care,
developed enough to
you know,
capture,
it's like,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so framing it in a way that they can kind of get the gist of what's going on here. Like, hey, we're electing a new president. This side likes these kinds of things and that side likes those kinds of things. And we align with this side more than that side because of these. And, you know, that was kind of the wave tops, but I'm not getting into now as my kids have gotten older, I've really enjoyed some of these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great conversations to have.
Yeah. Well, Nikki came out here. He brought his ballot and the little book that they give you, that little handout book. He brought all that shit out here and sat down in our living room one day before the last election. And we went through every candidate. We went through every one of them. We looked at all of the propositions and what they mean and all that. And Katie and I used that as an opportunity he was 22 at the time. Right. So I think that's a good chance, a good opportunity to really get into some of the nuts and bolts of it.
Sure.
And encourage them to learn and research why these things are important and some of the second and third order effects that go along with those.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about them and what really is important to them and what isn't. And yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Something else that I think is unique too is, and sticking on that exact example is, you know, you and I are in very different phases of our life than our kids are. And so the things that are important to them may not be the same things that are important to you and I.
Yeah, absolutely.
For example, you know, student loan forgiveness. I don't give a fuck, dude. I don't have any student loans. Right. Kids, however, you know, a 23-year-old kid who just graduated a 4-year college, that might be very high on his priority list.
That's right.
Yeah. So again, I think it's
it's all a matter of perspective, right? So, yeah, and I mean, I doubt there's a kid under, you know, the age of 12 who's going to want to have a conversation about politics and elections, you know, but as they get older or as they're exposed to things in school, you know, civics in school, and they start to talk about the political process and things like that, and questions come up, those are great opportunities to have those conversations. But 100% age appropriate, right? Like,
yeah.
Anyways.
So here's another one. And Katie and I were just laughing the other day about, we wish that we would have started when Caleb learned to talk, when he's like 1 or 2 years old. I wish that we would have kept a book and we called it Caboisms, because he's a fucking comedian, man. And I mean, we laughed our asses off so many times at some of the shit that he came home with. So he comes in from school one day and he walks right into the living room and goes, "Well, that was awkward." And we're like, "Okay, I'll bite." What, you know?
Yeah, what was awkward?
What was awkward, you know? And he says, "Well, we had sex ed today." And I forget what grade he was in, 6th, 7th, 8th, something like that. And so he starts going on about all the stuff that he learned at school that day, and his eyes are as big as dinner plates, you know, and it was kind of hilarious. And then Katie's a nurse, right? So that's kind of her wheelhouse. And I'm like, I need to go play video games or something. I don't know. I feel like Call of Duty's
I'm out.
Yeah. I need to go fix the truck. So she sat him down and she started talking to him about, you know, things that happen in a woman's body and things that happen in a male body, and just the difference. And he's just like, the whole time, you know, it's like, okay, we probably could have, you know, there's a way that we could have framed that conversation to where my kid's not like throwing up in the living room kind of deal.
Yeah.
Age appropriate.
But that said, you know, as your kids get older, I think it's important to have those conversations with them. Like with my sons, you know, as they were getting close to puberty, I had weekend trips with each of them that I did just one-on-one, where we went and had a great time, did a bunch of fun stuff, but we also had some conversations about, hey, dude, your things are about to start happening to you.
Girls aren't icky anymore.
Yeah. Well, and you know, your voice is going to start squeaking, you know, and you're going to start getting hair in places that you have never had hair before, and like these types of things are going to start happening to you, and I want you to know that it's normal. right?
Yeah.
Like there's not something wrong with you. Like
Unless you're
it's
Teen
normal,
Wolf, and then that's not
yeah,
normal.
exactly. And I think those were great conversations because, especially with my sons, I think it really let them know that like they could come talk to me about that kind of stuff, and kind of open that line of communication and that door for if they did have questions about stuff, they could come and talk to me.
Yeah.
So
Well,
anyway,
and let's stick on this for a second, because I think that probably the generation right before us, maybe our parents and their parents, those conversations were taboo.
oh, totally taboo.
Yeah, and this is something that we always really prided ourselves on in our house was no conversation, no topic is off limits.
Yeah,
Now we keep it age appropriate, and
sure.
I'm not going to call it Pornhub and teach you how the birds and the bees work when you're in
Yeah,
8th grade, right?
yeah,
Um, so we kept it age appropriate. But what it did ultimately is now that the kids are young men, they're grown, they still we still have open dialogue,
yeah.
right?
No, it
It
does.
it it created it's there's no fear of judgment. There's I'm having an issue. Like my one of my kids texted me tonight and says, "Dad, I'm going to call you a minute. I need some advice." Like that's good because he knows that I'm not going to like, "Oh, what the fuck? You ain't got life figured out yet, man." That's not the way we rolled, man. It was always just come to us with your problem, throw it in the fucking middle of the room, and we'll deal with it. No grenade is too big or too small for us to talk about.
No, and I think that that's really important, Roscoe, because like you said, it creates, for lack of a better term, a safe space for them to be able to
Yeah,
come
trust.
and
Yeah.
ask questions and trust, and it strengthens the bond of the relationship between you and your kids. And it does. It allows them to know that they can come ask you those questions, and you're not going to be judgmental or anything or rush to judgment or anything like that, right? It's just an opportunity to have a conversation and learn, right? And I found my experience with that has been very beneficial with my kids that they will come and talk to us about things that there was never any opportunity for me to have those types of conversations with my dad when I was growing up
Yeah.
at
I
all.
didn't well, I didn't want to have those conversations
Yeah, dude,
with my parents.
I remember in my late 20s, early 30s calling my dad just because I didn't know who else to talk to. Um, and I was having some issues in my previous relationship, and I just wanted some advice. And I realized that night that there was a reason that I had never talked to my dad about those things because he was not capable of providing me any kind of decent advice about that stuff.
I can feel that.
And it's not
Yep.
a knock on him, I think a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of that's just generational, you know, um, for whatever it's worth. I really do. I think some of that's just generational. But yeah. So, anyways,
I think I don't know, man. It'd be interesting. I want to get your take on this. As the generations have gone on, let's look back at maybe our grandparents and then compare them to say our kids now. So what's that, 4 generations? Um, I think generally speaking, society has just gotten a little more liberal
yeah,
about things like that. And
yeah,
there's like
with
when I was in
a
high
small L,
school, yeah, sorry.
yeah,
When I was in high school, and it was like my second year of college before I met the first person ever in my entire life. Almost, I was 19 years old. That was gay. I didn't even know that was a thing. I was having a conversation today with a dude at work, and I was trying to explain to him how sheltered my childhood, how sheltered I really was. I'd never been west of Dallas. I'd never been north of Tennessee. I mean, like, church on Sundays and Wednesdays. And like, I didn't, when I was in basic training, that was the first time I heard somebody say they didn't believe in God. And looking back on it, I'm like, how the fuck did I function, man?
right,
I mean, my kids been eating sushi since they were 5 years old,
yeah,
and I didn't
right,
even know sushi was a thing. Like, that's bait where I come from, And so, yeah, I think that some of those conversation topics have just sort of become a little bit more mainstream.
yeah. Well, I think society and culture shifts over time, and we recognize that maybe things that were done in the past aren't as effective as other ways of doing things, and we kind of morph and adapt and
Yeah.
move on from there. So, um, yeah, I mean, yeah, and just I think I said some of it too. I think it's just different ideas of how roles in the family have changed to a certain extent. Where it's not cut and dry. Like I know, like my mom and dad. My mom, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for her to do much other than be a housewife when she was in the generation she was growing up in. Um, unless you wanted to be a nurse or a secretary or
Yeah.
something like that, right? And so, I think just things shift and change, and I think that there's just a little more open mindedness about that. And we've learned too that there's a lot of good things that come out of proper communication.
Yeah.
And so, um,
Hey, that would be a
anyways,
fun episode. No, that would be a fun episode for us to kind of dig down into, because I've been kicking this around in my mind a little bit, and I've been thinking about we should do an episode on kind of the dirty jobs. The what's his name, Mike Rowe,
micro,
and
yeah,
and kind of the dirty jobs mentality, like the blue collar dudes and all that. Because I think we've, as a society, over the last 30, 40 years, we've been sold this bill of goods about going and getting these college degrees and shit. And I mean, we're running out of electricians, we're running out of plumbers, we're running
yeah,
out of welders and stuff. And
yeah. And AI
and
can't replace those.
yeah, and I would like to take that a step further. Take that conversation a step further in another episode, and look at this idea of men and women and traditional roles, and how those either overlap. Because my dad's a nurse, right? And traditionally, like historically, 2 generations ago, that was a female career field.
Oh, dude,
You know?
remember Meet the Fockers? Like that wasn't but
Yeah,
20
Greg's a male
years
nurse.
ago, and yeah, and he's a male nurse, and there's like all this a male nurse, right? I mean, that
Yeah,
was just 20 years ago.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, so
uh,
that might be fun, and I
yeah,
don't see a lot of women lining up to go lay bricks. I don't see a lot of men lining up to be secretaries. So maybe there's
yeah,
something to it. Maybe there's not. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't know.
well, I know that on my ASVAB, I scored the weakest in administrative stuff. So it's good that they put a wrench in my hand and not a pen and a typewriter. I've written 6 books now, 7 books, and I still don't know how to type. So
Yeah, I can say with pretty much 100% certainty that you would have been a horrible secretary, Roscoe.
yeah, yeah, that would have been bad. We were laughing about
Except for the
something the other
coffee.
day
You
about.
probably would have made really good coffee.
Oh, you know what? It was the last episode we did. I saw this clip of one of the last episodes we did, and we were talking about being doctors. I'm like, yeah, no, that's
No way.
I know my limitations, man.
Yeah. No thanks.
I would have gotten fired for bedside manner. The fuck is
Oh,
your
yeah.
problem, man? What? Stop being a pussy. Put a Band-Aid on it. Here's some Motrin. Go home. The wonder drug. Cool, dude. What about secrets that might push, or that might put pressure on the kids? Like, hey, don't tell your mom, but XYZ. I spent $2,000 at the casino this weekend.
Yeah, that's right the fuck out, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't even expose your kids to that stuff. And you don't even the problem with anything like that too is if you start to create this secret culture where everybody wants to play I got a secret, and now all of a sudden you're requiring your children to hold things in, secrecy. Like that's a big ask for a kid,
Yeah.
to not share things that are being shared with them. And again, it's what's the behavior you want to model? Like, because guess what they're going to start to do, dude? They're going to start, well, hey, little Jimmy, guess what?
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to go. It's not going to be good for them in relationship building and maintaining relationships and developing and building good relationships with friends and other people. And, yeah, and it just turns into like this little secret society, and it gets really cliquey, and none of that stuff's good.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of this kind of the golden rule, right? Do unto others.
Yeah.
And I would imagine you'd be pretty pissed off if that kid was harboring a vault of secrets that your wife is keeping
Yeah.
from you, right?
Yeah.
And again, dude, like it's so funny,
Well,
man.
You know
it
what?
doesn't.
And
Go
how
ahead.
about just be a fucking adult?
Well, that's true
And
too.
if you're having an issue or you've done something, having the right conversation with the right person and dealing with it.
Well, and that's what it ultimately comes down to, right? Is
Yeah.
you're obviously harboring some guilt over this, right?
Yeah.
And you need to get it off your chest. that little 8-year-old's probably not the person you need to be talking to.
Yeah. Well, and guys, and and there's, I mean, right? There's like that stigma if you watch any show on TV or whatever, right? The dads are always stupid. They're like an additional kid in the house that the mom has to manage, and they run around and they're like, "Hey, don't. We're gonna do this, but don't tell your mom, right?" And it's like, and it's funny, right? It's supposed to be funny, but dude, all you're doing is teaching your kids that it's okay to keep secrets from people or to do things that they know that they're not supposed to do, and as long as they don't get caught, it's okay.
Well,
Like,
and I like flirting with that line a little bit though, because I want my kids to see me kind of as a goofball sometimes. Um, Maybe not so much, as they've gotten older, I've maybe dialed the goofiness down, but it's still like we went to this when the Final Four was here last year. We went down to the convention center downtown because they were having like this big fan fest or whatever, and I got us tickets off of VetTix. And so I took the boys. We went to dinner or went to lunch with Katie, and then we kicked Katie out and just bros only went down there. Dude, I haven't laughed that fucking hard. And so it was just nonstop, man. And I can't tell you, it was not R rated. It was
yeah,
above. It was
sure,
above. It was so funny, right? So I want them to see that side, but I also want them to see the side that dad's decisive, dad's a hard worker. No matter
yeah,
what happens to this family, dad's got it. I want them to see that part of it. I want them to see what a massive amount of responsibility it is to be a dad and to be a husband and to have the weight of this fucking house and family on my shoulders. I want them to see that and feel that sometimes because I think that's important for them. They need to know what the fuck they're getting into with real life. But at the same time, hey, let's go down here and just let our hair down for a little while and have
yeah.
fun and fucking
Have
laugh
fun,
and,
sure.
and make fun of people. And yeah, so I think there is a line there that you can tread.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, sure. I just would stay away from the let's keep secrets from other people in the family game.
Yeah. I don't know how I got off on the Final Four and X-rated Google searches, but um, anyways, there it is. Dude, there's a whole bunch on this list and we could keep going on and on and on. But in summary here, or as I've been listening to the conversation, I picked up on a theme and it is let's go all the way back to the pillars of the fucking podcast, right?
Yeah,
Define your values
yeah,
and try to practice those. And I think
yeah,
naturally things just work out
yeah,
after that. Be the example for other people to emulate. Be that one of five mentality. Be that
yep,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Demonstrate what you want your kids demonstrate the behaviors you want your kids to to use. Show them how they should operate in the world, and that's all values and practicing integrity, right? And when you make a mistake, having the sack to go, hey, I fucked that up and I'm sorry, and please forgive me.
Yeah.
And, I'm only, we all make mistakes and I won't make that mistake again. And, yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah. And just let them be kids, man, when they're young. Just let them get their hair on fire and
Yeah.
let
Have a
them
bud
try
day.
stuff. And, don't, yeah, don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like you were saying, dude, like sometimes it's just, sitting on the floor for 15 minutes playing GI Joes
Yeah.
before bed because that's all the time you got, and it's meaningful to them. Those are the things they
Yeah.
remember.
It is. Kids sports. I got wrapped up in that. That's a tough one. That's really hard, man, because it is competition and it's very hard to remind yourself, especially when I was coaching.
Yeah,
In the stands, that's one thing. Parents in the stands hooting and hollering. As a coach, it was very difficult for me, and I got it wrong probably more than I got it right. The idea that, man, these are just kids. We're like, football is fun. This is a fun sport, but at the same
yeah,
time, it's so competitive, and we have a chance to win a big trophy, and that kind of it's a delicate balance there.
yeah, yeah. Well, and again, it's just I think it comes down to, for me, in some ways too, just the proper form of masculinity too, right? And that's that part of that is protector, and protecting your kids from those types of things, from the craziness in the world sometimes, all the shit that's going down in sideways in politics right now. You know, those types of things, just emulating that, being a good example of trying and working with your partner to try to show your kids as best you can what a good relationship looks like, what a loving relationship looks like. Those are all super important things.
Yeah. And I don't want to, I wanted to get this out a little earlier. I'll get it out now. So when I sent Work Hard, Don't Suck out to a few people to give me a read on it, one of the guys that I sent it to is a girl dad. And I had this whole intro written about who should read this book and blah, 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 blah. And he emails me back. He actually called me and he goes, "Hey dude, don't forget about the girl dads, because you want to carry yourself in front of your daughters and emulate the type of man that they might be looking for
Exactly.
one day." And I would challenge the boy moms to take the same mentality. I'm going to carry myself in a fashion, and I won't even use the term ladylike, because maybe that's even, old school nowadays, air quotes, old school, but carry yourself in a fashion so that your kids look up to you and they want to see those parts of you in their future spouse one day. So I think that, and that's a little bit of pressure on us as parents. And we're not always going to get it right. God knows I didn't. Jesus.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think fundamentally for younger kids, let them know they're safe. Let them know things are stable, and let them know they're loved. If you can do those three things and then be a good example by, demonstrating and practicing your own value system and showing up and emulating the behavior that you want them to emulate in you, you'll be doing a good job.
I don't think I could have said it better, man. I mean, I could try. I could spend another 6 to 9 minutes trying to regurgitate, but no. Good shit, man. It comes back to that big O knot.
It does.
It's all tied together, man. And it starts with your values. So we got homework.
Right on.
Awesome, brother. Got anything else?
Be the change.
All right, be the one. Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number 1, change and the number 1.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1 Change One on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website, and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.